Hello, chess friends. I believe that there is any sound right now. It should be working. There was some problem with YouTube, so the sound wasn't there. Anyway, I must apologize for the condition of my voice. I got a little cold, so it's not the best, but I'm trying my best. So today we're going to be talking about calculation, and more importantly, the things that you need to remember. So I'm going to bring up a couple of really, really good examples that will show you, that will illustrate how calculation is supposed to work and what you can do. So basically, the first thing that I would like to do is set up a few positions with which we could practice. I'm going to teach you how to practice on calculation, because a lot of the times people don't really know how to practice improving the calculation. So that's why I think that this is the more important thing to begin with. Now, after that, eventually we're going to do more. But let's go with this very first position. So, hold on. Yes, basically, this is for white. Now, this is a very interesting position because the first thing that we realize is that white's a queen down for just two pieces. And that makes it quite clear that unless you find something really good, he'll lose the game. And that's unfortunate. So the real question being is, okay, so we've got strong pawns, a good rook right behind, and the black queen is just not perfect. But what is the right way to think? So I'm looking forward to your suggestions on the chat so you can give them. And when you're actually thinking and going to give those suggestions, I do want to tell you a couple of things about calculation. See, first of all, you need to know what matters most when it comes to calculation. The first thing that you would like to do is to ask yourself the question. Okay, it's a big query. Number one, what is the goal? Like, what do I mean by that? The goal is a very specific thing that you would like to achieve, and it helps and it matters a lot. So we need to be thinking about that. What is the goal here? Well, being a queen down, essentially it's about developing a quick counterattack. There's nothing else. The first thing that we need to do is to make some quick counterplay. The next thing that you would like to do is to figure out forcing moves. Because you see, if you set up the goal, that will help you to guide your calculation, both yours as well as your opponent's. But what matters most is figuring out the forcing moves, because oftentimes they shall lead the whole position, everything that works. So let's talk about this situation now. What are the best candidate moves that you can come up with? Now, most chess players have that wrong impression that being good at calculation is all about calculating deep. And even if you calculate deeper, it doesn't really matter. The idea being is that you want to come up with a number of candidate moves or possibilities, because when you think about a number of these candidate moves, you could really decide, you could really think about which one works better. So we have d7. Apparently one candidate move is to just advance that pawn square forward. We've got knight d4 to drive away the rook, or we've got e6, so in case he takes. So which one to do? I guess both of them, or all of them look good. So we want to start with the move that is going to give the opponent the least amount of options. Always think about that. When your opponent is given the least amount of options, the line is easier to calculate. For example, in particular here, it's the d7. So you might want to do that. Now, when it comes down to training your calculation, I would always recommend that you do it without moving the pieces. Sometimes people say, Valeri, it's just like, it's not a real game, so why don't I just move the pieces on the board and make it easier? It's because you're training for a real game. And in a real game, you're not going to be allowed to move the pieces. So if we play d7, truth is that black could just do rook d8. And then as soon as that happens, we could play knight d4, and black could do rook e3. Or even better, think about the black goal. Don't just think about white's major goal. White's major goal is certainly to advance the pawns and keep going, but the black goal is going to be about counterattacking. He might play rook takes to the c3, b takes to the c3, and then queen takes d7. So you can see how this whole line fails due to the simple idea for black to capture. And we're lost. See, you want to think about those lines often because they're the easiest to go through. They're the simplest line to calculate. Now, once you do that, you could actually go with the more complex stuff. Like, for example, a move like e6. Now, let's talk about e6 because it looks interesting. Apparently, black could choose between taking and moving away. If he takes it, okay, then we can expect that in case of e6, queen takes to the e6, white will still play the move of knight d4, forking. Black would move his queen down to f7, then white will take f3, and then black will capture f3. So we're going to have a big change in the position. Yet, don't stop there. Unless you know that the position is going to be quiet down and things are clear, you can't allow yourselves to hold, to stop it. You want to keep going and you want to proceed with your analysis. For example, we could say that white will do rook f1. Black's queen is going to go back to c6, trying to hold the pawn. Then white can do d7, rook d8. And then, I mean, we have a critical position. Like, again, when you're calculating something like that, you might want to just replay it. I always love replays because what replays mean is that you're going to get a very clear type of vision of what the position is all about. And so it's always a good thing to have. So we can have, again, let's replay it. e6, queen takes to d, knight d4, queen d5, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, d7, rook d8, rook f1, queen c6. So we're getting this position in which basically the black queen is moving back. And that's the question now. So like it hasn't completely changed yet, so we have to be very careful how to continue. So what should white do at this point? How can he continue? It's a great question. It really is in this case. See, I love this pawn out there. It's ultimately white has this, rook. Both of those actually are great. So what do we do? Great rooks, perfect rook pawn, and what do we do? Bishop b4. It's a lovely move, actually, because then after the move of bishop to the b4, we could go ahead with rook to the f8. You see, going deeper into one line like this is definitely something we want to, analyze, and just because this is critical. It could be either if it's good, you could win, or if it's bad, you lose. Either way, we need to see it all the way to the end. And then after bishop b4, with the threat of rook f8 check, things go perfect. Really love the sequence, and I really love the idea of actually having that line. Now, most people would just get really excited about e6 and they would immediately jump with that kind of move, and that's okay. It's just that you have to remember, because after the move pawn up to the e6, indeed, queen takes to the e6 leads to knight d4, so what I guess black could do is to play queen e8, and yet white can simply do d7. Queen to d8, and then there is bishop a5. It's an incredible thing how every single move that we do follows this one goal that is set out from the beginning. So set goals and think about forcing moves. It can help you greatly because you get to think about each of the possibilities, each of the ideas, and how they can work out. After bishop a5, black's got a big problem, mostly due to the queen. But it's not just that. It's also about the fact that we've got the e pawn moving forward. And black's in trouble. He is. e7 is coming. Black is down. Doesn't have the ability to make anything in this position. And the truth is, even if he captures it, we've got e7. So basically, he's losing it. I really, really love the setup, the possibility out there that just seems to work. Now, what else is out there? Now, Another interesting idea I wanted to point out actually is that in another training position I'm going to bring right now, we can approach calculation a little bit differently. I want to show you what I'm talking about. Here we go. This is a new position. I just need to copy it. 1 second. Okay, here we go. This is it. So, and then I do want to say that these are all positions from Grandmaster Igor Smirnov's courses. He's basically offering 3 courses at an incredible 60% discount price for just the next few hours. So if you're interested in checking this out, he's got, some amazing advice and suggestions, and his courses feel a lot more than just videos. He brings a lot of techniques and ideas and additional training files and test positions that you could take a look at. If you want to take a look at this, you can check the video below. Just the link below this video. So anyway, what to do now? Now, truth is that sometimes it's difficult to figure out a specific goal. The position is way too complex to have only one. And that's why I say that one of the first rules of figuring out a good tactic is really beginning with the question, what? And I mean, really, what is the major weakness? Begin with that. What is the major weakness that the opponent is having? Now, the major weakness that black is having in this position is apparently the king. There's a really bad place for that king. The king is just exposed too much. And so what we would love to do is going to be to take advantage and threaten it. The question is how? What should I do now? Does anybody have a suggestion or an idea? Queen takes d7. That's a pretty good move. Because the weakness isn't the e7. E7 is under pressure, that's for sure. But the most important is we've got the black king as a major weakness. We do want to follow and pressure against him. That is great. So what we do in this case is actually focus on taking. It's got to recapture very quickly. And then ultimately, we've got the possibility to advance with the move. This is actually perfect. Bishop to the d5. Or, in this particular case, I guess black will play rook f7. So why don't we just wait for this? First play rook takes to the e7, and then prepare for the bishop d5. Now, in that case, we could really chase down the black king to the h file. And in fact, we have this rook h2, which is going to be a perfect idea. And so this is a great move. Very nice idea and very powerful. The bishop's good. Most of the black pieces out there are quite backward, and this is good. And then after the move of rook takes to the e7 is actually played out, black has a lot of trouble, much to worry. And the truth is that with bishop d5 on the line, nothing else really matters. The bishop's coming, black's pieces are bad. Even when you did queen b1, there's bishop to the e1, blockade. And then after queen takes to the d3, you've got rook d2. The black queen alone is not even remotely good as white's pieces. Moves like bishop d5 are certainly working out. The rooks are terrific, the bishop is great, and the rest of white's pieces are simply amazing just by following that up. What can black do? Not much, That's the whole thing. It does not have the ability to make anything good. It's just a very powerful thing, and you have this opportunity to play bishop d5. We've got a nice attack out there against the opponent. So this is it. One of the keys, no matter what you're doing, one of the major keys to be successful is in every complex position. in every tactic, as you're calculating and thinking about moves and ideas, start by looking at the weaknesses. Because once you find out the different weaknesses, you could really go after them and take advantage. That's big. Of course, let's take a look at another example, which will show you a couple of different little techniques to keep in mind. Give me 1 second. Now we're going to talk a little bit about complex positions. This is very important. This is basically from the black side, so I'd like to hear if anybody has a good thought as to what white should do, or what black should do. Again, this is a pretty cool position. And let's talk about this, because black is great. Once again, though, you need to sort of find out or discover what the different weaknesses could be. So what is this position all about? And more importantly, what are the kinds of weaknesses that, like what can we exploit in this case? So take a moment here and think about this. What is black's best way to advance or attack at this point? What should he do? Very good question. It's like when you think about this, the most important thing is that we get to see that black is very advanced. See, so first and foremost, that black must concentrate on the possibility to attack. It's just like actually right now, it's a powerful thing. What we do see is the move knight takes e3. It's so simple. When you're really looking at a possibility like this, we realize it's not just the threat that we're going for, but we also have that bishop from g7 reaching out and attacking. We've got a great tactic. We've got a powerful move that most of the white pieces just can't defend or do anything with. And it's great. It's really the way it's supposed to be. In many accounts, in many occasions, you'd like to be thinking a bit about potential weaknesses. And what do I mean by potential weakness? Potential weakness also means like the idea, okay, what's out there? What could be weak eventually? Maybe not right now, but in a few moves from now. Because when you find that out, it could very effectively help you to attack. Right now, we've got that capture. And then, for instance, after that move of queen takes to the e3, there's bishop d4. Once again, we come down to that main idea. Finding the weaknesses is going to help you to realize what is most important, what's really needed in such a position, and how to make it work. This is basically all you need to do, all you need to know. Okay, so what I'd like to do is bring up another example from Grandmaster Smirnov's course, this time a little more challenging, so you can understand how to think in certain situations. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Copying it. This is a game that was played between two grandmasters in the past, and they're going to be talking about how you can come by the right decision when one is not clear. The game was played between Igor Ivanov and Vitaly Tseshkovsky in a tournament in Yerevan, actually, some years ago. And as you can see from the very beginning, black has already built a position that's worth mentioning. The rook, the knight, the bishop, the whole, picture of black just sitting so strong. And yet, what should we do? Should he just try to advance or attack? Or actually do something else? What's the best way to go as black right now? Very good question. Very good idea, also, I'd like to say. Okay, the first thing is we could be thinking about a gradual improving move. Just one of the things is rook takes a4 or knight e6. I don't believe that any of those moves are going to work, knight d6 or rook takes e4, because there's no follow-up. Even if you get that knight to the e4, it might get challenged with f3. Even if we play rook takes a4, he's going to take it back with the queen and he's safe. It's just not going to work. But if we do go with another move, something that can help us to break, like rook takes to the e3, it looks really great. Now, I'm not saying that this is a good move. I'm not saying that this is an excellent idea at all. I'm just saying that it's a very interesting thing to consider. So, what would possibly happen if we do a move like rook takes e3? Should we do this move? Should we not do this move? Let's think about that. Well, truth is, if we play rook takes to the e3, I'm guessing white will probably just capture there with the pawn. Now, again, believe me, oftentimes these moves are going to look fantastic, but you don't really want to jump with them unless you actually think about what the effect is going to be, what the impact is going to be. So, if we play with the move of rook takes to the e3, f takes to knight takes to the e3, we could actually expect that white will run away with his queen. And then the question here is, what do we do next? What's going to happen in that situation? After the move of rook takes to e3, f takes to the e3, the capture, then white would eventually have to do the move of queen to the d3. And then after the move queen to the d3, queen to d2, sorry. If we take d1, that just feels like we've lost all the battle. So, what to do? Now remember something important about any sacrifice. Something important about any sacrifice that you'd like to be thinking in terms of two ideas. The first idea must always be, don't forget that, by the way, this is big, asking yourself the question, what is the initiative I can follow with? Can you have a good initiative to play with, or you don't? Okay, so this is very important. Do you have a good initiative? Do you have no initiative? Second thing, what is going to be the pressure? Sometimes initiative cannot last or it cannot continue for a really long time. And so what we would prefer to do in that case is going to be to think a little bit more about, okay, what's the pressure? Pressure means usually tying the opponent down and making sure that he's got enough to worry about. So it's like, that's what I mean often by tension. You see, this is a good idea to consider. Now, it doesn't mean anything, not yet, but it could be interesting to look at. For example, in that specific position, after we do go with knight x to the e3, there is really no initiative, at least not an immediate one. But what we could do is to think about bishop takes d4, and that ties him down even more. Now, again, I'm not moving the pieces because it's very important not to move the pieces. It's important that you kind of see them without moving. So we can have that bishop taking the d4 quickly. I suppose white's going to move away his king in that position so that he could run to the h1. And what I'm guessing is going to happen is that once he runs away to the h1 square, we could just use that extra pressure that is given to us to exercise even more tension. Maybe one of the things that we could do is we could always take the rook on d1 if we wanted to. We already have a few extra pawns, but I believe there's a lot more to that too. Now, is it worth it? Well, here's the thing. When you're going with something as committal, there's always a risk that you may lose. But the truth is that if you believe in that sacrifice, if you believe in the risk you're going to take, that the risk you're going to take is pretty rewarding, I think you can take up on it. Like rook takes to e3, pawn takes, knight takes, queen is met by the bishop, and then once white king retreats, just goes backward. I'm gonna ask you to find out the super powerful move that black was able to, figure out and advance with quite effectively. It's a great position, and it worked out amazingly strong. Let's see about that. What do you think black has to do next? What's the best idea to go by? Okay, I want to tell you now. Rook takes a4 looks like a good move. We could just take the knight, and yes, that's awesome. But I always say, look for pressure. Rook takes a4 is probably simple, so I gotta tell you, when you have something as simple and as nice, you might want to do it. But I certainly like a lot more the idea of playing alongside knight g4. Because then, with a move like knight at the g4, we could go ahead with moves like bishop to the e3. We've got we've got bishop e3, we've got knight e3 out there. We've got this queen h4 is going to be a pretty valuable idea. It's wonderful. It's easy, it's simple, and it is effective out there. For example, in case white plays with a move of, let's say, h3, we could be going directly with a move like queen to the h4, so we could set it up and closing it into the g4. If we do have that idea, we've got this excellent resource, not just with the queen, but with every single piece. And that's what I mean, the pressure. This is what you're really looking for. Pressure, pressure, pressure. See, white didn't know what to do. And so after knight at the g4, obviously he's going to try to play smarter, which means that he can just play knight 8 to c5. And what do? Again, this concept, this position, the training position, is all about how you can make more pressure. And the way to do it is just don't let your opponent have any advanced pieces. With a move like b6, we're doing perfect because we force this knight to move now right down. And as he goes right back to the b3, we've got queen h4 available, which is great. h3 and bishop e4. Because of the immense activity of every single one of black's pieces, we realize how impossible it is that white gets to defend out there. And then you can understand that we're actually setting up for a move like bishop to the e4, and then we've got moves like, we have that queen takes, queen to attack. Most of white's own pieces are just completely awful. This is a wonderful thing. Majority of white's pieces are bad, but most of all, there's nothing you can do to escape. And the reality is that right after that actual move, white loses. He can't defend queen takes h3. His pieces are so far back. So one of the things about calculation is that you can never reach that final point where you could say, all right, I'm perfect. I can break through like that, and I can open up, and things are going to be great. But what you can do, and I deeply advise you to consider, is think about that goal, that final point that allows you to get more, which was really the moment after black did bishop takes to the d4, knowing that black can maintain the extra tension. And one of you asked, why doesn't black just do queen to the g3? I guess because of, actually that may be a good idea. I was thinking about queen f4, but I realized it doesn't work actually because of knight f2. I just think that bishop e4 kills much faster. When you think about it, there's no defense against h3. And even if he attempts to make knight f4, there's still queen g3 to follow without having to fear that white's queen can block. Here, check, checkmate. The pressure and initiative are the two indicators that whatever the sacrifice you're going to make is actually going to work out and how you can make it work out. So basically these are a few really good positions that I wanted to show you. Now let me show you another instructive example that kind of allows you to see how to calculate. Here we go. I'm going to set it up right now for you to look in a moment. Okay. 1 second. So this, I think, is a really good example about the length of our calculation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to calculate too far and don't want to calculate too short. There's no absolute rule about calculation in terms of how far or short you must go. The general guideline is you want to go as far as you believe the line is unclear. When it becomes clear, you could stop. This is a very good position in which we see that black has really turned some of his, like I'd say 90% of his pieces in very active positions. The rook and b6, the knight on f4, the bishop and the queen, they're all pretty solid. But he also needs to find a way to use them. He needs to find a way to really determine and bring those pieces into battle. So what I want you to do is to think about this and try to calculate what possible candidates does he have and which one of them should eventually be most helpful. So what do we do as black here? Take a second and think carefully. Hmm. I guess you're thinking right now, and I like that we think about this because again we could see that there's a very very valuable knight on the f4. We have a queen on f6 that's perfect, and actually I have to say we see most of our own forces in line in this position. So what do we do? Do we actually play? Do we attack out there? And what do we do? Hmm. You see, the thing is, you'd always like to begin with kind of forcing moves that are most necessary. And I have to say that you could even play with a move of bishop knight takes the f, knight takes to the g2, but then white could just recapture very quickly, and he's pretty good. I love the idea itself, although once he retakes, it's just not gonna, it doesn't really feel too perfect. So how do we plan ahead in a position like this? What do we do? Well, the truth is, it's always a bit more challenging when it comes down to a position of that kind because we realize that, there's a lot of forces and yet they don't really look so coordinated, so perfect. But knight to h3, I love that move. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Let's see what it can do. Now, again, let's do it without moving the pieces. If we do knight h3, you'll play g takes h. Bishop takes d2. Rook takes d2. We could drive our own rook onto b1. Then white would defend with rook e2. So most people would just stop right there and they'll say, okay, I don't see any way forward. I always say, think about this. Is it clear? No, it's not. So we have to continue. Now, once again, keep in mind that a lot of these positions that I'm actually showing are from Grandmaster Smirnov's 3 courses that are presented at an incredible price, 60% discount on the link below. You might want to check it. It's a great offer. Anyway, Knight h3, pawn takes h3, bishop takes to the d2. Then, of course, we do have rook takes to the d2, rook b1, and rook e2. So we have the position with the black rook tying down, white's protecting, and now we're trying to sort of figure out what's the way to go next. I love this position, I love the rook, and I love the queen. It's just that one question, where to go next. You know what? When you're really thinking a bit more about this position, one of the key things, one of the major questions that you've got to ask yourself must be, can I continue? Because a sacrifice is not an easy thing to do. The follow-up is just as important as anything else. And the continuation does not necessarily mean they have to destroy him. It could be just moves that limit the opponent. Like the idea of playing c6, forcing him right back, down to a square like c4. And then maybe, just maybe because we're already sacrificed the knight, we could play g takes h3. And we could continue very quickly with the idea of queen to the g6 or queen to the g2. It's a really, really powerful way to go for. It's a simple move. It's an easy idea. And then you can think about the move of, just like queen to the g6, which will be a perfect possibility to advance. It's a very, very valuable tactic. Nothing to worry about. One of the things that you would like to remember is just really think about these principles, these little ideas, because like after g takes h, yeah, it's not just the fact that we've got the move of queen g6. We kind of follow up. We have what I would call the most necessary part of the attack already there. You're doing it. So what happened in the game is great. At h3, g takes h, bishop takes d2, rook b1, c6. And then once white played bishop to the c4, it's a really good question, played g takes h3. We've got queen to g6 in this moment. And then actually we've got the pin. We've got queen f3, that's wonderful. So white probably has to do the move of rook to the e3. And then we can do rook takes e1, rook takes e1, queen g5 check. Do you need to see it all? No. You just see it until g takes h and know that there is more to come. Is there a risk when you go it in line? Of course. There's always a risk when you commit a sacrifice, or even when you don't commit a sacrifice, but that shouldn't put you off. Keep going. Do it. If you lose, you will actually learn a little bit about what you have to do better. Either way, now we're not losing. We're actually setting it up. And then, for example, after that type of a move, we can capture. And then after that move, in case white plays with the move of king to the d2, we've got queen next to the c4, we've got rook to the d8 in this position. And that's a perfect idea. You have a wonderful, solid development. And it's just great. It's really, really helpful to see it. So one of the really interesting things that you could find out in this position is that by having all these pieces together, by setting them lined against the opponent, all we have to do is focus our attention on the forcing moves and the threats. Because as we do it, it's only going to take a couple of moves, and then the attack is great. And remember to check like Grandmaster Smirnov's courses to learn a little bit more about how these and other techniques work. He's got a lot of helpful training tools inside, so that could help you as well. Now, I'm going to make this lecture a little shorter today because I'm not really feeling that good. I'm with a little bit of a cold, and I would like to take some extra rest. But thank you for putting up with me today, and I hope that each and every one of you have actually a great holiday season. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful time with your families. and I'll speak to you most likely next Saturday at the usual time. Thank you so much, and good night.